before we actually get into the episode, I just wanted to say that, this content that will be discussed in this episode, I would say it's not exactly kid appropriate. Well, I mean, I'm a kid myself, but you know what I mean. So, just gonna give that warning. Take it as you see it. I would personally say that like 12 and under shouldn't really listen to this, but that's just my opinion. If you feel that you're mature enough, go right ahead. I'm not going to stop you. But just wanted to give that little warning. Now, let's get into the episode, shall we? Hi, everyone, and welcome back to the fourth episode of GIST with Dara. Super excited because I have my first guest today, my lovely Auntie Viella, who we will be both be sharing our views on the opinion of abortion. So she can introduce herself now.
Hi, everyone. I am so excited to be a part of this chat today. I am so proud of Darasimi. My name is Abiola. Everyone calls me Abby. I am a 36-year-old who is married and has a daughter who's 10. I work as a nurse practitioner in the DFW area. I've been a nurse practitioner for 8 years now, I think. I can't remember. It's been a long time. Prior to that, I was an ICU nurse. And I think that's really all I have to share at this time. I'm excited to be a part of this conversation. So thanks for having me.
Okay, that's great. Thank you. So we're just each going to state our opinions about abortion, and then we'll have that will spark an interesting dialogue, and we'll both just each be talking about why each of us believe that opinion. And so I'll start, and then she will go after me. So my opinion on abortion, I do proclaim that I am pro-life. However, there's like, I don't want to say wiggle room, but like it's like a mix of both pro-life and pro-choice, but mostly pro-life. So it's like I understand if somebody was to have an abortion in the cases of like medical reasons, like if either both of them, like that, like the mother and the baby could die, or one of them could die. I completely understand that. Or rape victims if they got pregnant that way and they don't exactly want to live with the child who is the child of their rapist. I understand that as well. So that's why I would say I'm in the mix of both. But if I was to completely choose one, I would say that I am pro life. So go ahead, Antabella.
Well, I feel like if we get into the nitty gritty of, if they want an abortion for this, for A, for B, it's okay, but not if they want it for C. I'm definitely pro choice. I believe nobody should be making decisions about a woman's body but that woman. I do believe that we need to have more conversations around protection and you know
Definitely.
being smart about our choices. However, I believe that a woman should be allowed to choose what they want to happen to their body. Pregnancies are not easy. Raising a child is not easy. So I am 100% pro-choice. I do believe, I am a Christian. I do believe that, we should all be pro life. But I also believe that there are just certain circumstances that, unless you're in that situation, you can't really you can't really understand it. So it's easy to say, oh, just carry the pregnancy and then, give the child up for adoption. That comes with its own challenges, right? Children that are adopted, they have their own challenges as adults. And do you really want to be responsible for that kind of baggage that could potentially come with that? So yeah, in a simple answer, I am pro choice. But I don't judge anybody for their choices, so to speak.
Okay, got it. Thank you.
Mhm.
So, talking about the adoption thing that you mentioned, so I know before, maybe when I was in like middle school, so I guess like sixth, seventh, and eighth, then, grade, I was always like, oh yes, pro life is the way. That's the only way. And I was even thinking to myself, I was like, okay, I understand if you were raped and things like that. Like I understand why we want to have an abortion, but I was always like, they could give it up for adoption. So with what you just mentioned then, and but then I think I realized a bit over the summer last year, I realized me thinking that way was a bit naive because it's like you said, it's easy to just say, oh well, you can give it up for adoption, but they have to go through that like 9 or 10 months with the baby that they didn't necessarily want because it wasn't their choice to have the baby in the first place.
Mhm.
So that's why like I because I think before I was always like, oh yeah, I understand if they want an abortion because like they were raped or something like that. But there was still that thought in my mind, like if I ever came across somebody like that, I would still try to persuade them to
Mhm.
not have an abortion. And I
Mhm.
think now, going through summer and kind of thinking about things again and not really being as naive, I would say that if I was ever to meet somebody like that or somebody who's in that circumstance, I wouldn't necessarily try to persuade them either way. I would just say like it's obviously your choice, and I completely understand either whichever choice you do choose. But I do think for myself,
Mhm.
let's say like uh, God forbid, but like if I was ever in that situation myself, I know that for myself, I wouldn't have an abortion, and I would just give the baby up for adoption. But at the same time, if somebody else isn't as like doesn't want to go through that pregnancy, I also understand with that. So
Yeah, but think about it. As you get, the kid that was given up for adoption, then they grow up, and then they realize that they were adopted, and then they start looking for their birth mother, and maybe they find the birth mother, and then they find out that they were a victim of that they were product of a rape, and that's an extra baggage. Even being adopted, like, oh, nobody loved me, nobody wants me. That's why they gave me
yeah,
up, even though that's not necessarily always the circumstance. Sometimes it is. If you get pregnant at a time that you're just not ready to raise a kid. I used to say in my early and mid 20s that, oh, I'm a perfect auntie. Like, I got it down how to be an auntie. I can do that. I can't be a mom because it's just a lot of responsibility. It took time. Even though I had my daughter, I mean, I'll share a personal experience. When I was pregnant with my daughter, I was so sure that the world was going to come to an end. And I'm like, oh my goodness, what have I done? I've become a statistic. Um, I was in grad school, and I thought about a lot of things, and like this child is coming at the worst time because I'm not ready to be a mom. I cannot afford to be a mom, and I want to give my kid the best, right? Because that's what we always want. You want to give your kids what you may not have had growing up. And I just felt like it wasn't the right time, and it just so there were times that I thought about it. I hope my daughter doesn't listen to this, but there were times that I thought about it really because, yeah. Anyway, but I realized that, after kind of talking to my mom about it, she kind of explained to me that I realized that my reason for not wanting uh, a baby at that time wasn't valid. It was more, what other people would think about me. When I really sat down and broke it down, it's like, is it true that you really cannot afford a baby? Well, of course I could afford a baby. At the time, I was a registered nurse. I was in grad school. I could have afforded a baby. So that really wasn't it. Oh, are you not a good mom? And I thought about it. Well, I take care of my nieces very well. I'm very nurturing. I'm very caring. So of course I'm going to be a good mom. So I realized that the only reason that I really didn't want a baby at the time was just because of what other people would say, like, oh my gosh, here goes another black woman who's having a baby out of wedlock. And then when I got to that point, I was like, okay, I think I'm ready, because I realized that my none of my reasons were valid. And looking back now, like I said, my daughter is 10. We've been trying to have another baby for the last 4 years, and it hasn't been successful. Sometimes I wonder, I'm like, what if I didn't have her? Then I wouldn't have a kid. Now that now that I'm like, oh, I'm very ready. I have a great support system. My husband is fantastic. I have family around. I have friends around, people I can depend on, people I can count on. And now that I'm supposedly ready, well, here we are. I can't have a baby. So um unless you're in that situation and you can kind of hopefully break things down, and it's one thing if you're a teenager, that can be a reason for people to want to have an abortion because you're not ready, or you could even be in an abusive relationship and you get pregnant. Is that really the time to be having a baby? So it's a lot. There are lots of arguments for and against it, but I know for me personally, I would still want that decision to be mine because you're the
Hmm.
one that's going to stay up at night with the baby. You're the one that's going to have to go to doctor's appointments. You're the one that's going to have to, raise this child. So it's really important that that decision, in my opinion, come from the person that will be responsible for that life.
Yeah, I understand that, which is why, even though I am pro life, I know most pro life people or a lot of pro life people, they say, like, oh, there should be laws in place to ban abortion. However, I don't necessarily think abortion should be illegal because of like the situations I described earlier, where like like that the that it seems like abortion kind of is the only choice or
Hmm.
something like that. And that's why I don't think it should be illegal.
Hmm.
But I just wanted to add that. And also, some like I know a lot of people will use the argument of like abortion is murder, which I have used in the past and which sometimes I still kind of think about. So I wanted to hear what your views on about that. And yeah.
So I'm a nurse practitioner, so I'm thinking medically, you know, people believe that, life begins at conception. The minute the sperm meets the egg, that's considered a human life. I don't believe that. But, even though I'm in healthcare, um, I'm not necessarily in the world of obstetrics and gynecology and, the fertility, except for my own personal experiences. I don't think it's murder if it's done within a certain time frame. Because, some people say, oh, the minute you have a heartbeat, I don't know. It's just such sensitive topic, and it makes me
Yeah.
so uncomfortable to even talk about it because I feel like everybody has their opinions, and I personally don't believe that it's a baby or a fetus at conception. The question then becomes, okay, are you okay with it if it's at 6 weeks or 12 weeks? I don't know. I really don't. I don't have a thought on that. I mean, I have thoughts, but I don't have any thoughts I want to share on that. The one thing I will say though, I don't believe that that life begins at conception. Because it's like a tiny little, like, I mean, I've been through fertility and I've seen it, and it's like almost you can't even see with your naked eye how tiny the egg is. So that's my thought on that. The other thing I wanted to that I feel like is really important is to really teach um, you know protection and birth control, and because I mean we can't control what people do.
Yep.
I had a conversation with some of my girlfriends, I think yet 2 days ago, about how we would feel if we had teenagers, our kids, that want to have sex. Like, would we be okay with that? And of course, the Nigerian in us, right? Or not, a couple of my friends were like, "Oh, hell no, absolutely not," blah blah blah. And then here I come with my, progressive comments, and I was like, "Of course, I don't want my teenager to have sex, right? I don't want that. I want her to be ready. I want her to be with somebody that she loves, somebody that loves her, somebody that will appreciate her, to have respect and dignity, but at the same time, if she tells me, hey mom, I think I'm ready, I want to have sex, I will buy her a condom, because I don't want her to be a teen pregnant person, right? I want her to have a full life and not have to struggle. Of course, you can have a kid as a teenager and still have a successful life, absolutely. But it will be harder. Life will be harder, and I don't want
Yeah.
my daughter's life to be hard. Of course, I'm going to do a lot of teaching, a lot of talking, a lot of advice. But if she ultimately tells me, again, I hope she doesn't listen to this voice, this podcast.
I'll make sure she does it.
Yeah, if she ultimately tells me, hey mom, I want to have sex, I have a guy I'm seeing, he cares about me, I care about him, I will definitely buy her some condoms, show her how to use it, put her on birth control. That's just me. And this was a healthy debate between myself and five of my friends. And and we kind of talked about it for quite a while, just kind of going back and forth, and so yeah.
Okay. Thank you for that. I was gonna say though that that's definitely important to like teach sex education in schools because you can like say in school all the time abstinence, 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 abstinence,
Hmm.
and preach abstinence all day long, but that doesn't mean that people are going to listen.
Yep.
So I think that they could include the abstinence part, but also include for the people who don't completely believe in abstinence, here is how you don't get pregnant
Hmm.
when you aren't ready to get pregnant.
Yep.
Because like it's something that definitely needs to be embedded into the the education system because you don't want to keep having more teen moms every year. And if you just completely say just wait to have sex until you're married, then that's good and all handy dandy, but that doesn't always mean that everybody's going to listen.
Hmm.
And so that's why it's important to teach all different situations for anybody's opinions on how on when they should have sex so that you can make sure that people aren't that women and I guess boys as well aren't getting pregnant when they're not ready to, or when they're teenagers, or when they don't have when they're not financially able to provide for a baby.
Hmm.
And I think that's also how abortions would be limited. I meant unlimited. I meant become less as well. So
Hmm. Although I agree with some of what you just said, I just don't agree with the fact that it should be taught at school,
mhm.
because the teachers are not the parents. I think parents should do the raising of their own children. I don't think that, because I don't necessarily agree with my child learning about sex education at school. Yeah, I'm okay with like a general knowledge of biology and physiology, what happens when you have sex and you end up pregnant, how does that work. I'm okay with learning that from a science standpoint, from a
Got it.
physiologic standpoint, but I don't want a teacher who has their own, I mean, we have to be real, right? They have their own biases and their own values. I don't want them instilling that into my kid, because it may not necessarily be it may not necessarily be the same as what I believe in,
Hmm.
like I said, I have a 10-year-old, right? We just started talking about, sex and menstrual cycles and all this other stuff. And, and I had that conversation with some of my other girlfriends who were like, oh my gosh, like, why are you talking to her about this? She's not ready for that. Well, I know I started my period. I'm trying to remember. I think I started my period at 12, but my niece started her period at 9. So what if that's my kid? I need her to know what can happen, and yes, I'm very protective of my daughter. We do things together. We're together all the time, but I'm not with her at school. I don't know what happens at school. I trust her, and she's open enough to come to me with things. But what if she's not? What if she hears things? I mean, there's been conversations that she's brought up that I'm like, huh, how do you know that? Oh, I heard it at Girl Scout. I attend everything you do at Girl Scout and I'm present. She's like, oh yeah, you stepped out. I was like, oh my goodness, the one time I step out, they're talking about this, and I had no idea. So I don't want a teacher teaching my child about their sexuality. I am okay with sex education from a biology and physiologic standpoint, but I wouldn't want a teacher talking about abstinence and all that with my kid.
Yeah, I definitely understand that. I didn't really think about it that before, about it that way, but I think I meant more because like I guess specifically from the biology standpoint, but also like I don't know if this just sounds like easier said than done, but like if they could do some kind of thing where like to get the parents' permission in a way,
Mm-hmm.
because I do know though it was weird because like last semester when I had P in health, like she was talking about that in my health class in my PE class, and she was like preaching abstinence heavily, and I was thinking about it, I was like, oh wait, because I remember in seventh grade when we were taking life science, just to even talk about the reproductive system, that was completely from like a biology standpoint, like nothing specifically about sexuality or anything. We had to get like permission from that. Maybe that's just because I was 12 then, and I guess now because I'm in high school,
Mm-hmm.
maybe it's different. But I don't know. But I definitely understand what you said. I think I guess I didn't think about it that way, but what you said makes sense. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Yep. That's awesome. This was a good conversation.
yeah, it
I was
definitely
kind
was.
of nervous. I was like, oh Lord, I don't want to share my opinions on the air because but I'm glad we had this talk.
I'm glad as well. But just remember, I said it in my trailer. I semi say it, I kind of said it in my other episodes. Both of these are strictly our opinions, and we're not trying to push on anybody else, or even you see, like both of us, our opinions are different, but we're still,
I love you.
that's yeah, I love you too. Okay. But thank you for coming on. I really appreciate it. This is fun. It's definitely nice to hear two different sides of this, semi different sides. But yeah,
Yeah, thank
so
you. Thank you so much for having me. I hope you'll invite me back and we'll chat some more in the future.
definitely, definitely. Okay.
All right.
Thank you.
You're
All right.
welcome. Bye bye.
Thank you so much, everybody, for listening to this. If you made it to this part of the episode, you're a real one, and I will remember you. Anyways, again, thank you for listening to this. I hope you enjoyed this episode. Hope you enjoyed meeting my aunt, through your earpieces, earbuds, through the phone, computer, whatever you're listening on. Anyways, again, thank you so much. And next week will be another exciting episode, so I'm ready for that, excited for that. Thank you again, everyone, and come back for another episode next week, Saturday.